Everyone has a story and everyone is going to have an idea about who you are and what you do. We're here because we have a lot of scar tissue and we pivoted, and I think we're just in a really good spot. Midnight Marketing, we're an energy digital marketing company. We focus on branding, we focus on websites and digital marketing. Right now, we primarily serve like the US, North American market. We're gonna go unlimited. And so there's no limits to working with us. So there was a market miss, an opportunity in marketing with oil and gas service companies. So we saw almost like an inefficiency in the market, and that's what we wanted to serve. That's where the model came from, was that.
We have to earn our customers' trust every single month. They can cancel anytime if they're not happy with the service, and that keeps us accountable to keep delivering a high quality product.
In a young company, the bottleneck is going to be the founder. That's usually the case.
Where's this rocket ship headed to next?
All I know is that we're going to be the best damn marketing company that we can be.
Why should you start a podcast today?
You don't know what's going to pop off in 6 months from now, and you might be recording something that doesn't really connect today, but in 6 months from now it does. There's
so much you can do with a long form piece of content.
Yeah.
And that's just evergreen content that you can continue to distribute. You're founder and CEO of the company, but on LinkedIn, your bio says support staff. Could you tell us the reasoning behind that? So back in Montreal for the first time in what, 6 months?
6 months.
A lot has changed in that time.
So much. It's wild. Yeah.
How has it felt this week being back in Montreal with the creative team in the office? Strategy week, being part of these collaborative brainstorming sessions. Like, how has it felt being back, seeing the growth in the team, new team members?
Every time I come back, there's such a step change. 6 months being away and coming back, there's just been like, I can't even put into words how impressed I am, because I'm walking into strategy week. Like 6 months ago, we didn't even have strategy week, where we have all these brainstorm sessions, the level of organization, the structure, all these new team members. It's dope. Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't know, can you give us a little bit of background about Midnight Marketing? Who is Midnight Marketing? Who do you serve?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Midnight Marketing, we're an energy digital marketing company. So we focus on branding, we focus on websites and digital marketing, in that order. And so right now we primarily serve like the US, North American market. And so we've been doing that for almost 4 years. We're coming up on our anniversary in August.
Yeah. So 4 years, man, like that's, incredible to be surviving as a bootstrap company over that period of time. But in that past 4 years, you've not only founded a company, you're also now a father. You have a 2-year-old Sky, awesome little girl.
Yeah.
And I know you had a tough time out in Mexico, being back in Houston now.
Yeah.
So obviously as an entrepreneur and a founder, it's so important to have that first foundation of family and relationship to set you up successfully for your business. So could you tell us a little bit about how it's been your journey being a father to Sky?
Oh man, it's it's better than what I thought it would be. Yeah, it's incredible. People say this, right? Like your life changes, your perspective changes, and you can't even talk about it unless you just you go through this, because it's such a unique experience having this little human depend on you. Honestly, I'm before anything, I'm the CEO of Sky. I'm Sky's dad. That's
the number one priority always.
Yes. Yeah. I love hanging out with her. I miss her. I'm going to see her within 24 hours. Looking forward to that. So
yeah, it broke my heart when I saw a video of you leaving the car, and I think it's the first time you've been away in a long time, and she was in tears.
That was tough. Yeah, because before that, so Midnight started in Houston.
Yeah.
I've always supported my wife in her career journey. Mm-hmm. So we had to get our visas renewed. We didn't need to go to Mexico specifically, but for her career, that's where it made sense.
Yeah.
So as soon as we moved to Mexico, that's when we got the office. Within a week of me moving to Mexico, got the office here in Montreal. we already had the office in Katy in Houston,
Hmm.
but we set this up. And so the first like year and a half that I was going back and forth pretty much every 6 to 8 weeks coming here, she was so young. I mean, she wouldn't really notice that I was even gone. But
Yeah.
now, like, she's going to be 3 next month.
Oh wow,
Yeah. So it
that's
goes by
awesome.
quick. And it's like noticeable. So,
And they're way more conscious as they grow up
yeah.
of these things. Like I have a 3-year-old nephew now, and he's fully conscious and
Yeah.
understands these things as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
what are the biggest lessons that you've learned from being a father, and how does that translate into business?
Um, yeah. There's a couple of dichotomies, with business. So I'll give you like almost like a mechanical answer. In business, you're always looking towards the next quarter, right? You're
Yeah,
always looking to like for growth. You're also looking at like, okay, payroll. So like everything's based on time, right?
yeah,
And you want to like get to your goals quicker.
yeah,
And then you have this little human and you like want to slow down time, right? You want to
yeah,
slow it all the way down to the minute. And so, uh, one of the things that she's taught me is just to like really, you don't know what happens tomorrow, just like appreciate today. You woke up, like the little things, like that's where my focus is. Like really just being so grateful and thankful that we're able to have this time together.
yeah. And like you said, kids, they grow up so fast. So like this time you have to enjoy it, because
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, there's not going to be too many more years that she's going to want to like hang out with me the way she does now. I think
yeah,
we're always going to have a good relationship, but more people are going to be introduced in her life.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
going to be
yeah,
more factors. And so there's only, I don't know, maybe like 10 or 15 more Christmases until like
yeah,
she probably doesn't necessarily want to hang out with us on the weekends with mom and dad, or you know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? So like when you put it in perspective from like you break down, and I said Christmases because I love Christmas so
I
much.
think we all know
Yeah. We still
that.
have the Christmas tree in the office.
Yeah, I want to talk about that later, but we'll get to that eventually.
But
Um,
yeah, so you think in those terms. You're like, okay, like, she's had like this is going to be her, her third Christmas, and
yeah,
there's only 15 more to go until she's 18.
yeah.
It's
And you
quick.
guys are best friends. I see that you have a very close relationship, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. I love her so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously, relationships are so important to your life. But as well, I know health and
Yes.
fitness are a huge part of your life, and that also props you up to be successful in business. And I know you have some crazy fitness routines. So could you tell us a little bit about your 10-mile runs in the morning, your fasting, and how does that relate to business as well?
Yeah. So every morning I wake up between 4 to 5. Sometimes it's a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but it's typically between 4 to 5. And I'll start by, doing a little bit of whether it's like, work, email work,
Yeah.
and then I'll get into my run pretty quick.
Hmm.
And that's typically a 10-mile run. And then I'll come back, wash up, shower, and then I'll head to the gym and do weights for about an hour. So that's every morning,
Every morning,
every single morning. Yeah.
7 days a week.
Yes. I'm trying now to get to a point where I can take a day off
Yeah.
once every 2 weeks and not feel bad about it,
Uh-huh.
right? But I feel optimal when I do that. Like clearly, I feel more like mentally acute, and I feel like there's a lot of issues that come up when running a business. There's a lot of
Yeah.
problems that come up, and like all of those are diluted when you've exerted yourself. You
Yeah.
know?
Any problem that comes up, you feel like you're equipped to
Yeah.
take on easily.
It just worked out for 2.5 hours. Like, nothing's a
Anything that comes
problem.
out
Yeah.
is not going to be
Yeah.
close to this.
So how that translates into business, I think one of the key takeaways is that like, you hear a lot about motivation. Like
Yeah.
you got to be motivated about it. And like, I think motivation is completely overrated. Like
Hmm.
there's something about dedication and just like doing it. Like there are many times where I don't want to do a 10-mile run, or I
Yeah.
don't want to go to the gym. Many times. There's times where I contemplate just like I'll look at the weights, or I'll look at the the treadmill and just like maybe 20 minutes just like staring at it off to the distance. I'm like, do I want
Hmm.
to do this today? And you just do it and you get through it. And that coincides a lot with business. Like there's weeks or months where you could feel like you're hitting a plateau,
Hmm.
but you persevere.
think it's discipline, and over time that compounding effort
Yeah.
snowballs, especially when you're founding a company. And I think that segues as perfectly into talking a little bit more about the story, the origin story of Midnight Marketing.
Sure. Yeah.
So coming up on the 4-year anniversary now of the company, and over that time, obviously,
Yeah.
looking in the office now, I think if you combine everyone, we're a team of almost 100 people.
Yeah.
So seeing that exponential growth over the past 4 years, could you tell us a little bit more about the journey of where did Midnight come from, and where we're going?
Yeah. So Midnight started in 2020, like in the middle of COVID. I had just I had just exited my last company and I wanted to do some like freelance work, some consulting work. And actually, the goal was to not start another company because
Yeah.
there's a lot of work, a lot of people to manage. It's just, there's a lot. And I just wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
That didn't last very long. So, what had happened was I was taking on clients from a marketing perspective with like consulting. And, and then I said no too many times where I was like, well, maybe there's something here, right? And so I was like, okay, I'll hire a designer, I'll hire a 3D rendering artist, and I'll just do like minimal work, and that just kept on growing, and it kept on, one after another, and next thing you know, we got this amazing team, badass leadership team, podcast. Like it's very cool. So, but that's how it started, and it grew really quick. The first 2 years were like rocket ship. Things were flying off.
Yeah. Chaos.
Yeah, chaos. Last year was a lot of growth internally, a lot of like reflection and
Yeah.
looking at our model, looking at like our customer service, fine tuning that, the processes, methodology, and now this year we're turning up the volume. Yeah.
And your background, being a founding part in digital Wildcatters, and you founded a couple companies before
Yeah.
starting Midnight. So what were some of the lessons that you took from those first few like failures and successes from the original companies that you're founding, and the lessons that you brought into building Midnight?
Yeah. So there was something learned from each of them, and there's several of them, but I'll focus on maybe the ones that you mentioned. So um, the first real success of a business was Now Streaming Services, which turned
Yeah.
into Now Media Services. That was a 7-figure business. That grew pretty quick as well. And that was a streaming company. And so what we would do there is we had video production for like one-time like video events or like, conferences, concerts. But the real model was like what we were interested in was like setting up venues. And then there would be a subscription fee for bandwidth, very much like the way your cell phone works with a carrier, right?
Yep.
So you would stream. People think of like YouTube now, they think that is just free content. When you're encoding and decoding, like there's a cost to that. And so this is before YouTube Live, this is before Facebook Live.
This is like early 2000s.
No, I'm not that old. No, it was like this is
late 2000s, like 2010s.
2012. Yeah.
Tim is not 50 years old.
No, 35. And that really took off. And so we had an office here in Montreal, and then we opened up an office in Edmonton, and most of our clientele was also in the States, and that's how we operated. So it was very much like a product, meaning like, Midnight, the way we grow, the more clients we acquire, the more we have to grow our team. Now is more of a product in the sense of like we could have hundreds of clients a month and still have a very, very small, tight team.
Yeah.
It's really just based on customer service, a little bit of tech, and then that's it.
And then multiplying those efforts.
Yeah.
To scale and grow.
Yeah. So in terms of like what was taken away from that, so at that time, when you were live streaming, you had to sign up to like a platform like livestream.com. They were huge, or like Ustream.
Yeah.
Man, this is taking me back. And the way it worked was like you would go on their pricing table and you had to calculate as a customer how much bandwidth you needed for how many viewers you think were going to would tune into your stream, and you were penalized if your stream was successful. The more successful it was, the more you had to pay. And so we hated that model, and we thought that there's no way we can go to conferences or sell people on like, hey, like literally these sites had a calculator for you to calculate how much it would cost based on how many people would tune in, but you wouldn't know how many people would tune in.
That's so crazy that you're penalized for doing a successful stream. So the
Yes.
more successful you were, the higher the penalty was.
Yeah, because bandwidth, encoding, decoding, like
Yeah.
transcoding, these things had real tangible costs, and so
Yeah.
but the model was broken, and so the way our model worked was like, hey, we're going to go unlimited, and so there's no limits to working with us. So you can stream to as many people as you like
Yeah.
on a monthly basis, no contracts, very similar to the model today.
Yeah.
That's where the model came from. Was that?
And that was kind of your introduction into tech.
Yes.
And this is before the days of social media and the internet.
Yeah.
And I guess the segue in between now and today would be digital wildcatters.
Yes. Yeah. So digital Wildcatters. Man, such good memories. Julie, Jake, Colin. Shout out to the team, the core team. Um, yeah. So I joined Digital Wildcatters in 2019. We started on a project that turned out to be actually very successful. In that time, their model has changed now, but their model at the time was very heavy on podcast sponsorships and like
Mm-hmm.
advertising.
Yeah.
And so during that, I just naturally saw that there was a market miss, an opportunity in marketing with these oil and gas service companies.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it with their branding, you saw it with just their online presence, and so I left Digital Wildcatters and started Midnight. Um, and we're really good friends with Digital Wildcatters. We're fans of what they do. Where everything's on good terms. But started Midnight, and that's where that came from. So we saw like a market, almost like an inefficiency in the market, and that's what we wanted to serve. And so,
I love that you found a single problem. You know, typically energy companies don't really know how to market themselves
yeah,
and neglect marketing. So solving that individual problem and staying laser focused on solving that one problem, and then continuing to improve the quality of the product, the quality of the customer service,
yeah,
and then over time, I think for me that's looks like where a lot of the exponential growth has happened.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, we focus so much on the customer experience now. That's part of our daily conversations. So much so that like we talk about when a client leaves, how can we make it as easy as possible? Like
Yeah.
there's been serious conversations about when a client leaves, how can we make it super simple for them to leave? And I think that's a testament to how we think about customer service.
Unlimited marketing, no
Yes.
contracts. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? How we have to earn our customers' trust every single month.
Yes.
And like you said, they can cancel anytime if they're not happy with the service, and that keeps us accountable to keep delivering a high quality product.
Yeah, so it's twofold. So one, obviously the customers in the driver's seat. You know, when we talked about now streaming services, we hated contracts. It didn't make sense to us, so that translated into Midnight. Like, don't like contracts. Usually, towards the end of a contract of a service agreement, you're way past the honeymoon phase. You're
Yeah.
probably not going to get the same kind of like service you did when you went started. So this model, it holds us accountable while keeping the client in the driver's seat. They can turn
Mm-hmm.
off the tap whenever they want. And there's no like terms. There's no like, oh, you have to give us 60 days. You can cancel this month if you want. Like that's also a testament to how we think, like what we bring to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is fully from a bootstrapped model. Like you don't have to answer to investors or
Yeah.
anybody else. You have full control and ability to, if tomorrow you want to completely change systems and operations, you can do so.
So that I think is what, and no shade to companies that have to raise to, build maybe more complicated models.
Yeah.
What I love about what we've done is there's no one to answer to, right? So if we want to, something as subtle as like if we want to change our anchor days when people come into the office, we don't have to like talk,
Explain
you
that.
don't have to explain it. There's no
Yeah.
reasoning. When I'm having conversations with like our financial team on like, a cost per head when it comes to like revenue per head and these kind of numbers, I'm like, I don't care about this shit. Like,
Yeah.
are we in the green? That's all I want to
Yeah.
know. Are we good? Okay, cool. We're going to keep on building then. It's almost like you can dehumanize your company by doing those kind of things. So I'm so thankful
Yeah.
that we don't have anyone to answer to but ourselves. We can try things out. If they work, we keep them. If they don't, we change.
I really like that because I think when you go down the deep into the financials, it kind of dehumanizes it. And if you're so obsessed with the customer experience and just serving a great product, having a great team, you're always going to be in the green.
Yeah, and I think that like, look, we're obviously not perfect. We leave a lot on the table. Like we leave a lot of value on the table, and we leave a lot of money on the table, but because of our model. But I think that this is like the right approach. Clearly, it's working. Clearly, like the market has spoken, and like something's working. Um, when we first launched the pricing, what was interesting, actually internally, we had some people that like who I really respect, just brought up, hey, pricing on the site kind of it almost feels like it devalues the company. It feels like it devalues marketing. It should be maybe a little bit more quote based because what we do is pretty custom.
Yeah.
And so while what we do is custom, I like the model being transparent. Like I don't think larger companies should pay more. I don't think that you should pay more just because your budget's more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So having everything out there in the open, it's a nice way for us to operate. It's also the model that we've chosen to pursue, which is that inbound model. We create content or we go to conferences and we get inbound, right? We're not knocking on doors. We're not doing cold calls. That's not the way we operate. No shade again to companies that do that. That's just not that's not how we want to be represented in the market.
That brings up a great point, and where I wanted to lead to next, which is this inbound versus outbound model.
Yeah.
I think we spoke about this before. Over the past year, a lot of our customers did our marketing for us and continue to do so. But over the past 6 months, you and Bella, our business development manager here at Midnight, have really been focused about showing up in person, especially now you're back in Houston, being in front of your customers in person.
Yeah.
So how important do you think that blend is between an inbound model versus outbound and combining that to successfully scale your company?
So I would say even like the conferences, although we're going to the conferences, it's still an inbound model. So we have our prices directly on our display.
Yeah.
So we're saying, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And this is what we charge. Want to book a call? And they're the ones choosing to book a call, right? So it's still inbound. I think when our customers also experience what we can do for them in terms of like inbound traffic and inbound, like that inbound model, you won't want to go to the outbound model. And I can only speak from my experience now up until this point, but like once you taste that, I don't see how you'd want to go to knocking on doors or cold calls, know? It's so much more powerful. Again, you're putting the onus back on the client. They're the ones booking in the call. We never force a sale. It's very organic. We even detect like on the call if it's like a stretch for their budget, but they want to do it. We'll say things like, hey, maybe we should just hold off. Like, come back next year.
Yeah, it's all about transparency and building trust.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point that leads into storytelling is a huge part of what we do here at Midnight and Not Your Story.
Yeah.
And storytelling is all about being authentic, transparent, and building trust.
Right.
So how does this translate into the work we do with our clients in storytelling, whether that's websites, branding, marketing services? How does that inbound model translate?
Yeah, so I think what we contribute to the mix is, everyone has a story and everyone is going to have an idea about who you are and what you do. So I think we help clients take control of that narrative.
Yeah.
That's where we come in. And we can, how we pull that out of them is usually discussing like their culture. It's usually discussing how the stakeholders operate. And then from there, we're able to like pull their stories out, from them and then create content and create different campaigns. And so it's a very beautiful organic way, right? We're not into false advertising. We're not into saying like, even with our clients, if like, they're wanting to do something that maybe we feel strongly against, like we're at a point now where we can have conversations and be like, well, maybe this is not the most authentic way to go about it.
Because you build that trust over time and they trust your expertise and knowledge to give them the right advice.
Yeah, we couldn't do that like 3 years ago, but like now we're starting to garner that trust. And when a client's been with us for 2 years, I mean, there's certain clients that we're running campaigns for today that 2 years ago, there's no way they would have let us do that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that we have to earn their trust.
Yeah.
Like rightfully so. It's their brand.
And for energy companies specifically, how important is it to differentiate yourself? It's a very competitive market, and people who have the most compelling story are going to win.
Yeah.
Especially with this inbound model that we're talking about. So why should an energy company invest in their story, in their marketing, in polishing the communication of their values? Why should they do that?
I think actually first and foremost it would be for their team.
Yeah.
I would say internally, you know. I think you want to work with a company that like has your values and shares your values.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be front and center,
Yeah.
you know.
Brands are built from the outside in.
From the inside
From
out.
the inside out, yeah.
From the inside out. Yeah. I really believe that. Like I think internal marketing is just as, if not more important than external marketing.
Yeah.
Because if you have a really like happy team, and like we're seeing that organically as well. Like more of our team, they're posting organically and posting about midnight, and
Yeah.
we don't put any handcuffs on that. Just like do your thing, and we support it. You
Yeah.
know. And if you do that right, more people are talking about the company. So there's more growth.
Yeah.
There's more promotions. There's more ability to be in different roles that are going to help grow your career.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful feedback loop.
Yeah, and that brings up a topic me and Bella were talking about in the last episode, which is personal branding, and which is personal storytelling. And it's an important point that personal branding content is always going to perform better than branded content.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as well, if you're the CEO of a company and you're telling your founder story and you're building awareness through your personal page as well as your company page,
Yeah,
you're gonna multiply your efforts.
Yeah. So I think that the personal branding versus corporate branding, there's a lot on this, and a lot of people
Yeah.
have different takes. The way I see it is this. So Midnight is a brand, and we're a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
We are in this marketing vehicle, and this is the direction we're going in,
Yeah.
right? People are going to get in and out of this vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
but we're still headed for the mountains,
Yeah.
right? That's the way this operates. And we want to make sure that people that come into in this vehicle like share our values, of course, but they're also going to have their own personal tastes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to allow them to like, publish content on their own, which is going to establish personal branding.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even think it's necessarily like more important. You can definitely get a significant amount of eyeballs on personalized, content going to like directly to your feed versus
Yeah.
like a company page for sure. But you need both, right? Like
Yeah.
a good example that I bring up is like, Apple has some of the most interesting commercials. When I watch an Apple commercial, let's say on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not likely going to comment on it and like it and share it with my friends.
You're not going to interact with it.
No,
No.
but I'm going to like really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But a picture of Tim Cook like at the office doing a selfie, like that's going to garner a lot of attention. So you need both.
Yeah, it's like you can't just have a website and then not be distributing content. It's a full part of the customer journey, and having every single touch point that you can capitalize on in your strategy is just going to make it even more stronger and more persuasive.
Yeah, and that's the way we've built the team here. It's like, the greater, like the total is greater than the sum of its parts, and that's truly the case with Midnight. And I think with personal branding too, we're in a really weird era where like, someone might have something connect on TikTok, and like all of a sudden they're like a life coach and like personal branding.
Yeah.
And again, like to each his own. But can you influence? Like,
Yeah.
can you garner interest? Like,
Yeah.
it's not just about likes and comments. Like, can you get people to, whether it's, career changes or purchasing a product or service that you're a part of,
Yeah.
like that influence. And it's not necessarily directly correlated to a follower count. It's more so about the engagement and the influence you have over your
Yeah.
audience.
That's a great point. You could have hundreds of thousands of followers, but you can't. That doesn't necessarily mean you can get them to take action.
Yeah, and we've seen it, right? Like we've seen like influencers like sell left and right, all these different, but the ones that really stick out are ones that stick behind like a company or two.
Yeah.
For the long run, and they're not just going to sell out for the for the highest price tag. Like a good example would be like a brand personality like selling a one post type advertising deal.
Yeah.
Like they're probably not thinking about their audience at that point.
that's the thing. People don't want to interact with an ad that feels like an ad. But
Yeah.
when it feels authentic to the content that they create,
Yeah.
then it's just going to be natural, and it's probably going to be land more impact and be more persuasive.
Right. Yeah, you definitely need a combination of both. And so I think what's been interesting about the team here is that we've really empowered people to create their own content.
Yeah.
And again, not put any sort of like midnight handcuffs on what can be created on personal accounts. And then, of course, on the company page, that's where we put a little bit more thought from a company perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So looking ahead, intense amount of growth over the past 4 years, but what does the future look like for Midnight? Like, we're on a rocket ship already, and there's immense growth. And I know the past few months have been an amazing time signing new clients and really scaling our efforts. But where's this rocket ship headed to next?
Who knows? Who knows? It's very, I could sit here and list some things out. All I know is that we're going to continue to be the best damn marketing company that we can be, and provide the best damn customer service. And those two things, plus, adding to our team, like where I think we're going to continue to scale. I don't know what the future holds, and I'm always a little bit weary to guess, because there's so many new tools, and a lot of what we do today couldn't be done like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
There's so much different technology coming in. There's a lot of like AI products as well.
Yeah.
And so a lot that we actually don't utilize. We only use like a couple of tools, because several of them don't actually add to like the customer experience.
Yeah.
Or the creative process. But who knows? You'll have to like stay along for the ride.
Yeah, you have to be very agile in this day and age, because things are changing, especially within marketing, so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really on like a year-to-year basis. Yeah. So.
But generally over the past 4 years, like removing yourself from the daily trenches of operations and kind of stepping back and allowing processes and systems to execute on your behalf.
Yeah.
How has that been?
It's been incredible. It's been, I mean, usually in a young company, the bottleneck is going to be the founder. That's usually the case.
Yeah.
And there's a really hard time with delegation, and there's a hard time with letting go. And I think that that's usually the death of a lot of startups.
Right.
And so, funny enough, Mexico, being in a very remote place in Mexico with not the greatest internet, it forced in delegation, because I couldn't necessarily be on calls, or I couldn't depend on my internet. And so a lot of our growth happened last year, at least internally, from a process standpoint.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. But we're going to continue serving our clients, and we're going to continue delivering. Yeah.
And finally, I know for a long time you've been wanting to start a podcast, and now finally we're sat here today in front of each other. So
2 years.
2 years, and finally we're here. So how does it feel to finally get Not Your Story off the ground and be sat here today?
It's awesome. It's so cool that we're able to do this. It's cool that you've taken over this. Like, pride. It's awesome. When I first met you, I had an idea that this was going to be really going to be good for you. And I think that you've taken this and made it your own. And yeah, it's awesome to be here and see the equipment. Steven's here. Shout out to Steven. Yeah.
No, it's really cool, man. And again, thank you so much for having faith in me. But originally, like, what was the reason why you wanted to start a podcast? Why do you think it's important in this day and age to be doing podcasts for a company? If you're a B2B company, or even, it doesn't matter who you are. If you have a message and you want to spread that, why should you start a podcast today?
So first and foremost, it was like a culture builder. Like, I wanted us to like interview each other and kind of we have such a diverse team. So hearing the backgrounds, and then eventually opening that up to customers. Yeah. It's also a great way for customers to get to know the people that they're working with. So those were the primary reasons. And then the secondary to that was that we can A/B test our own content. So we can see with thumbnails, we can see with media buying, what does better typically. We can try different, and so we can test on ourselves. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's what I love about podcasts is like you have that, talking about your content flywheel, you have that big piece of like content cake from the long form podcast.
Yeah.
And that can be broken down into an article, a carousel, short form video. Like there's so much you can do with a long form piece of content.
Yeah.
And that's just evergreen content that you can continue to distribute.
Yep.
You know, we're still seeing clips of you back on Digital Wildcatters from like 6 months ago, and that I'm sure that will continue for a while now, because there's so much content you can take from that episode and distribute.
And what's so wild about that type of like long form content and then splitting it up is that you don't know what the future holds in terms of like, culture, different topics, like you don't know what's going to pop off in 6 months from now, and you might be recording something that doesn't really connect today, but in 6 months from now it does.
Yeah.
And so that long form content also can turn into like long tail,
Yeah.
right? Where you don't really feel the effects and then it pops off. And so I think that that's why it's good to get started and create content. If it's not video content or podcast content, it might be written content. That might be your thing.
And I think coming from a standpoint of providing value, first and foremost, every episode should have a takeaway and a lesson.
Yeah.
And that's something we've tried to do so far with the podcast, and having the diverse perspectives from the team of like branding, websites, personal branding, copywriting. Like there's so many diverse skill sets we have in the team.
Yeah.
And just being able to spread and distribute all of those lessons. Like if anybody listens to those 4 episodes, like this is a little crash course in marketing there.
And there's so much diversity in the first couple of episodes already. Like we don't all think alike, and so
and that's good. That's what makes such a strong team.
Yeah, we have. I mean, even with our leadership team yesterday, there's beautiful conversations that we have where there's like very clear disagreements, but what I think so this is a good example actually. What I think is unique about us is the way we choose to make decisions.
Yeah,
is like it's not like you want to do something and I'm a little bit like about it, but I'm like, okay, like let's do it. But like if if you fuck up or there's then I'm like, oh, I told you. Like that's not how we operate. It's very much like, okay, I don't know if this is like the right thing to do, but we're choosing to do this, so now I'm gonna back this up, right? And we're gonna see through this. And so that's how we operate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the entire company feels that there's a lot of support for new ideas, and if they fail, we move on. I hear that a lot from other companies, and sometimes I question like if they actually embody it, but I can only speak from our experience. Like we really do,
Yeah, fail first kind of approach. Like if people are scared to make mistakes, you're not going to be creative. Like you have to experiment and find creative ways to do new things, or things are going to go stale, I think.
Yeah, we're just people. Just figuring this out, making decisions, making mistakes, and that's where we learned the most. We haven't learned much from our successes. It's just like things work and you don't get any feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe they aren't working. It's just no one really notices it, and then there's a crash. So it's like it's good to fail often. Hopefully not massive failures. Hopefully you can control them and like recognize them right away and make there's a change agent that you put in place. But we're here because we have a lot of scar tissue, and we we pivoted, and I think we're just in a really good spot. Maybe we can close off with this. I think that we're in such a good spot right now. So interesting. I had one of my buddies reach out who has a company here in Montreal, and he wants to book a meeting with myself and Bella. And this is how strongly I feel about our offering today. Yeah. It's like I know his company would be so much better off by working with us, from the value to like the price point to the customer experience, the service, how he's going to be taken care of. Like his company's going to be better off for it. And like, that makes me so excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's, when you can get to a point where you feel confident to like sell your offering to your friends and your family. I feel like that's when you're real about it, and like authentic. I feel like that's when you've hit on something.
You're so confident in the product now, like over the failures and learnings over the past 4 years, that you're happy to get anyone on board and be able to execute.
Yeah. Sometimes when we have like discovery calls, Bella will see it. I'll be smiling because I'll be like just test drive this for a month. Like just try us out for a month. And then if you don't like it, cancel. But I'm smiling because we have the data and track record that most customers stay on. Like we really do over deliver. you
Yeah.
know, and it makes me so happy with, where we're at and where we're going.
Well, same as you, I'm very excited to see the continued growth and trajectory of the team.
Yeah.
But a couple last little questions I have for you.
Sure.
I think all of our listeners have been asking this
Uh-oh.
question. So you're founder and CEO of the company, but on LinkedIn your bio says support staff.
Oh, yeah.
Could you tell us the reasoning behind that?
So it's both like, it's like comedic, but also true. Like that,
Yeah.
that should be the role of, I think, of a CEO, should
Yeah.
be like support.
Yeah.
And so it's like tongue in cheek, but also like, my role should be to support our leadership team.
Your door's always open.
Yes.
Yeah.
If there's any issues that come up,
Yeah.
wherever I am, whatever hour of the day, like I'm available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's great because the speed of communication is what determines the success of executing.
Yes.
And if you have those bottlenecks, it's, things in larger companies, when the CEO is very far removed, things can take a very long time to make decisions and pull the trigger, but being fast and efficient goes a very long way.
Yeah, and I literally embody that. Like I see everything as a pressing issue. Like I see everything as something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, urgency, speed.
Yeah.
All right, man. Last question.
Yeah.
We touched about it a little bit before, but it's coming up to June now.
Okay.
6 months before Christmas.
Yes.
I think you're probably the biggest Christmas fanboy that I've ever met.
Yes.
So can
I'm
you
glad
tell
to hear
me
that.
why we still have a Christmas tree in the office in June?
So yeah, and I think this is a great way to end this because of what we do and my passion for Christmas. Okay. What I love about Christmas is the buildup. The buildup, the anticipation, the surprise factor.
Building awareness.
Yes.
All year round.
But it's like that surprise factor, like Christmas morning, like that feeling, and it's like, it's so, it's cross country, it's cross culture. Like it speaks to so many people, even if you don't necessarily celebrate Christmas, like you might like the lights in the winter, you know what I mean? So I want to find ways to bring in more Christmas into campaigns with that surprise factor when you're talking about a product launch or like a website release, like a reveal that like you're
excited about.
You've
Yeah.
been kind of like, you've been teased a little bit about it. Yeah. And I absolutely love Christmas. It's my favorite holiday.
Christmas is the greatest product launch of all time.
Yeah, it is.
All right, Tim, last off, where can people get in touch with you and find you if they want to
Nowhere
work with Vidna?
You can't get I don't have a business card. Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not very active on there. That's on purpose.
You like to be a little bit under the radar.
Yeah, as much as possible. Yeah, which is like, it's ironic because I'm wearing a very flashy jacket. This is not usually what I would wear, but
no, the jacket's dope. I like it.
Montreal Expos, for those of you who
Montreal representing.
Notice the logo. Yeah. So thank you again so much for having me, and looking forward to seeing more of these episodes.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you could do me a massive favor and just smash the like button. If you enjoyed the episode and found it valuable, please hit the subscribe button and go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating. It would be very much appreciated, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time.